And yet, the absence of something has shaped human psychology more than the thing itself. Darkness terrifies us, not because it exists, but because it hides what does. Silence feels uncomfortable, not because it has substance, but because it leaves room for possibilities. Perhaps shadows have always occupied the same territory, not in physics, but in the human mind. Researchers studying perception have discovered something curious. Your brain is constantly predicting reality before your eyes ever confirm it. You do not simply see the world. You experience your brain's best guess. Most of the time, those guesses are astonishingly accurate. Sometimes, they are not. People occasionally report seeing figures standing just outside their vision. A movement that wasn't there. A shape that disappears the instant they turn their head. Science calls these perceptual errors. The brain filling gaps. Creating patterns from incomplete information. And yet those experiences are remarkably consistent across cultures and generations. Different people. Different lives. Different centuries. The same unsettling sensation. As though something was there. Watching. Following. Waiting. Perhaps the real question is not whether a shadow could possess a mind of its own. Perhaps the more unsettling possibility is this. What if your mind has been treating your shadow as something alive, long before you ever noticed it? And if that instinct evolved for a reason? What, exactly, was it trying to protect you from? The room is silent. Late afternoon sunlight slips through a window, stretching across the floor until it reaches your feet. As you move, something follows. Faithfully. Effortlessly. Without hesitation. Your shadow. You've seen it thousands of times. So many, in fact, that your mind stopped noticing it years ago. But imagine this. Not that it disappears. Not that it grows larger. Imagine that, for the smallest fraction of a second, it hesitates. One step. Then another. Your body continues forward. Your shadow does not. For a heartbeat, it remains exactly where it was. Then it catches up, as though nothing happened. Most people would blame the light, their eyes. Their imagination. The human brain is remarkably efficient at protecting itself from impossible conclusions. Because accepting what you just witnessed would require abandoning one of the oldest assumptions we possess, that everything reflecting us belongs to us. But what if that assumption had always been wrong? Across nearly every civilization, long before science explained the movement of light, shadows carried a different meaning. Ancient Egyptians believed they were part of the soul. Many cultures in Africa warned that damaging a person's shadow could wound the person themselves. In parts of Asia, stepping on someone's shadow was once considered an act of profound disrespect, not because it harmed the body, but because it disturbed something less visible. These beliefs emerged on continents separated by oceans, languages, and thousands of years. Yet they arrived at strangely similar conclusions. Perhaps coincidence. Or perhaps every civilization noticed something about shadows that modern life quietly taught us to ignore. Science tells us a shadow is simple. It is merely the absence of light. A region where photons fail to arrive. Nothing more. It tells the story after much of the story has already begun. If that is true, then who made the first decision? The question becomes even stranger when you consider the shadow. Not the dark shape on the ground. The one inside your mind. Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung gave it a name nearly a century ago. The shadow. Not a creature. Not a ghost. But the hidden part of ourselves that rarely reaches the surface. Every impulse we suppress. Every fear we refuse to acknowledge. Every desire that conflicts with the person we believe ourselves to be. Most people spend their lives believing they know who they are. Jung proposed something radically different. The person you know may only be half of the story. The rest remains hidden, influencing your choices from places you seldom notice. Perhaps that is why shadows have always fascinated us. They move exactly as we do. Yet they reveal almost nothing. No expression. No emotion. No intention. Only shape. Only motion. Only silence. Imagine, for a moment, that your shadow became conscious. Not overnight. Not dramatically. Just, gradually. The first change would not be visible. It would be psychological. You might begin feeling watched while completely alone. Not by another person. But by something that already knows everything about you. Every regret. Every lie. Every forgotten memory. Because if your shadow had shared every step of your life, It would know you better than anyone ever could. And then, one evening, as the sun sinks lower than usual, you stop walking. Your shadow takes one more step. Only one. But that single step changes everything. Because from that moment forward, the question is no longer whether shadows can think. The question is whether you were ever walking alone. There is a reason children fear the dark before they understand what darkness is. Long before they learn physics, they already understand uncertainty. A coat hanging in the corner becomes a person. A branch tapping against a window becomes a hand. A shadow stretching across the hallway becomes something that wasn't there a moment ago. Adults often call this imagination. But psychologists see something more fundamental. The human brain was never designed to see reality exactly as it is. It was designed to survive it. For hundreds of thousands of years, mistaking a shadow for a predator carried almost no cost. Mistaking a predator for a shadow could cost everything. Evolution quietly favored minds that imagined danger before danger revealed itself. That instinct never disappeared. It simply learned to hide beneath modern life. Even now, as you walk through an empty street at night, your senses begin to change. Your hearing becomes sharper. Your eyes search every movement, your muscles tighten before your thoughts can explain why. Nothing around you may have changed. But inside your skull, an ancient survival system has already taken control. Researchers studying the brain discovered something unexpected. Before you become consciously aware of many events, your brain has already predicted them. In some experiments, measurable neural activity appears moments before people report making a conscious decision. The data is still debated. Scientists disagree about what it truly means. But one implication refuses to disappear. Perhaps consciousness is not always leading your actions. Perhaps it is catching up to them. Most people believe they are the author of every decision they make. The research suggests something more unsettling. Your conscious mind may be less like a commander, and more like a narrator. Confident and afraid. Honest and uncertain. Contradictions exist inside everyone. Perhaps that is why shadows feel so familiar. They represent something we already know deep down. That there is more happening inside us than what others can see. A shadow with a mind of its own would not just be a strange creature. It would be a mirror. A mirror that does not show your face, but your entire existence. And maybe the most frightening moment would not be when your shadow moves differently. Maybe the most frightening moment would be when it moves exactly like you. Because then you would have to ask a question that has troubled philosophers for centuries. If something copies every action you make, what makes you the original? The body? The memories? The consciousness inside your mind? Science still does not have a complete answer to what consciousness truly is. We know the brain creates thoughts. We know neurons communicate. We know memories shape identity. But the experience of being you remains one of the greatest mysteries in existence. And perhaps that is why the idea of a living shadow feels so unsettling. Because it forces us to look at a question we usually avoid. Who are we when nobody is watching? When the world becomes silent? When the distractions disappear? When there is nothing left except ourselves? Maybe the shadow was never following us. Maybe it was walking beside us, waiting for the moment we finally noticed. For most of human history, we believed the world around us was the mystery. The stars above us. The oceans beneath us. The unknown places beyond the horizon. But perhaps the greatest mystery was never outside. Perhaps it was the silent presence that followed us everywhere. The part of ourselves we could see, but never truly understand. Because a shadow is not only something created by light. It is a reminder that every person carries two versions of themselves. The one they show to the world. And the one that exists quietly beneath the surface. The hidden thoughts. The forgotten memories. The emotions we bury because they do not match the person we want to become. Most people spend their lives running away from their shadow. But what if the shadow was never something to escape? What if it was something trying to communicate? Imagine waking up one morning and noticing something different. Your shadow is still there. It follows your movements. It copies your shape. But something has changed. It no longer feels like a reflection. It feels like an observer. A silent witness that has been present through every moment of your existence. It remembers every place you have stood. Every person you have met. Every decision you have made. The happiest moments. The painful ones. The memories you wish you could erase. A human being can forget. The mind protects itself by hiding certain experiences. But a shadow would have no reason to forget. It has no emotions to protect. No reputation to maintain. No image to defend. It simply exists. And that creates the most disturbing possibility. What if the thing following you knows you better than you know yourself? Psychologists have long studied the hidden parts of human personality. The thoughts we reject. The fears we avoid. The impulses we hide. Because humans are not as simple as they appear. A person can be kind and angry. Perhaps the strangest possibility is not that a shadow could become alive. Perhaps the strangest possibility is that we have spent our entire lives standing beside something we never truly understood. Every morning, when sunlight enters through a window, it creates a silent companion. Every evening, when the world becomes darker, that companion stretches across the ground beside us. It never speaks. It never asks for attention. It simply follows. But what if that silence was not emptiness? What if silence was observation? For thousands of years, humans looked at their shadows and saw something beyond physics. A connection between the visible world and the invisible one. A reminder that every person contains more than what can be seen. Modern science explains the mechanics of a shadow. Light is blocked. An area becomes darker. A shape appears. The explanation is simple. But human fascination was never about the shadow itself. It was about what the shadow represented. The unknown parts of ourselves. The thoughts we never say aloud. The memories we hide. The emotions we struggle to understand. The shadow became a symbol because humans have always felt that something inside them remains unexplored. Something watching from behind the scenes. Something quietly influencing every decision. Maybe that is why the idea of a conscious shadow feels so uncomfortable. Because it does not introduce a new mystery. It reveals an old one. The mystery of ourselves. Imagine standing in an empty room. No voices. No distractions. No screens. No one to impress. Only you. And the shape beside you. For the first time, you notice it differently. Not as an object. Not as an absence of light. But as a reflection of everything you have carried throughout your life. Every step. Every mistake. Every moment you survived. Every version of yourself you left behind. Perhaps your shadow would not be your enemy. Perhaps it would be the only thing that was there for all of it. When people change, their appearance changes. Their opinions change. Their lives change. But the shadow remains. A quiet record of existence. Following through childhood. Following through loss. Following through moments of happiness and uncertainty. Always present. Always behind. Maybe the frightening question was never. What if your shadow had a mind of its own? Maybe the deeper question is. What if it already does? Not as a creature. Not as another being. But as a symbol of the part of yourself you have spent your entire life ignoring. Because every person carries a hidden world inside them. A place where memories live. Where fears wait. Where forgotten versions of ourselves remain. And perhaps growing as a human being is not about destroying that shadow. Perhaps it is about turning toward it. Understanding it. Accepting that the person we show to the world is only one piece of a much larger story. So the next time you walk beneath the sun, and your shadow quietly follows behind you, look at it for a moment longer. Because maybe it is not just a shape created by light. Maybe it is a reminder. That no matter how far you travel, there is always a part of yourself walking beside you. And the greatest mystery you will ever discover may not be what exists in the darkness around you. It may be what has been standing beside you the entire time.